All right. Thanks for joining me on episode 6 of Living on the Edge podcast. I'm excited to have Mike Nager join me from Festo. Mike, thanks for being on the show.
Oh, I'm great. Very happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. So, Mike and I met about a year ago at I believe a fluid power conference in Ohio.
Yeah.
And we got to sit on a panel about kind of the history of Industry 4.0 and Industry 5.0 that people are talking about. And one thing that I really liked was what you're doing with Festo, how you guys are approaching the market, education, and the vision for it. You want to give a little introduction of yourself, a little background, your career, and what you're currently doing?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Adam. So just personally, I live in New Jersey, in Freehold, New Jersey. If you see on the back of my banner, you'll see the downtown. It's famous for being the home of Bruce Springsteen. So if you're a Boss fan,
Nice.
You'll know that name. I am an electrical engineer by education. And for 20 plus years in my career, I've spent working for manufacturers of industrial controls. And industrial controls are those devices that are used in every other manufacturing industry and every utility in the world. So it gave me a real good view of what's happening in all of manufacturing. And we didn't know it at the time, but the whole industry was moving towards Industry 4.0, the Internet of Things, industrial Internet of Things. And these controls are a big portion of it. So, so my background was working for those manufacturers. For the last 5 years, I've been working for Festo, and most specifically Festo Didactic. So Festo has two main divisions. One's an automation division, a manufacturer of industrial controls, very well known for pneumatics and electronic controls. And that's the bigger portion of the company. We're kind of a sister company, and Festo Didactic is unique in that we focus only on the education market. So we're bringing this message of advanced manufacturing, now Industry 4.0, directly into the classroom, into the laboratories across the country and Canada. So students, when they are learning about manufacturing, get to work on real life equipment. So we have real robots from KUKA, FANUC, Universal, ABB, you name it. We have all the controllers from Siemens and Rockwell, all designed into what we call a learning factory. And this learning factory actually produces product right in the classroom.
That is fantastic. That's amazing. Like when I learned about this a year ago, I always thought that in fluid power and manufacturing, there's not a lot of great learning resources. A lot of it has been learned from the field. And I think what you and your organization are doing is awesome. So it's really
Yeah, we saw the same thing. So historically, technical education has been very silo based. So you will walk into a 2-year college, let's say, you'll see a whole bunch of benches lined up, and one might be a hydraulics bench, something that you're very familiar with. Another might be a pneumatics bench. Another might be electronics trainer. And they're all important to learn the basics, but it's not putting together that holistic picture of what is the manufacturing facility doing with all this stuff. Right, so that's why we call what we offer the learning factory, and it provides everything in a context of a working piece of equipment, often used in capstone projects. So by the time that they graduate, they can say, okay, I worked on this portion of a real factory before I graduated.
Now, do you bring this is really interesting. So do you bring this to the private business world too? So if I'm an organization, could I send my team to be trained up? Because I look at one of the things in the industry as being this massive, evolution or revolution that's happening into Industry 4.0, and there's a lot of skill set gaps, right? And one of the biggest issues are there's a ton of domain expertise that do not have the skill sets yet, but you have to bridge it.
Right.
Yeah. So are you doing something like that?
Yeah, so our company is pretty broad. I work on the Industry 4.0 side of it, and the learning factory side. We also have a complete training and consulting division. So a private company could send a group, 4, 5, 6, 10 people to a facility, for a few days to learn a very specific niche subject. We have hundreds of subject matter experts that we have as teachers. We can bring that class to the customer if there's a certain number of attendees, and we do that with a lot of larger OEMs that are out there.
That's fantastic. And do you do it also for the Industry 4.0 piece? So
yeah, so what's really neat is Industry 4.0 or the smart factory or advanced manufacturing is finally energizing the whole manufacturing world, right? So it's finally something that looks good on paper, it's sleek, it's sophisticated. When you look at a laboratory, if you're a 17-year-old that's inclined towards that, you're like, yes, I want to get involved in this. This is really neat stuff. So we're really riding the Industry 4.0 pretty heavily. And on these technical trainers, not only are you learning about pressure of valves and volts and milliamps and networks, you're learning about augmented reality. You're learning about virtual reality. We have cloud-based artificial intelligence now doing a vision application, right? So we have an industrial vision camera looking at parts and sending it up to the cloud where there's an intelligence that determines how many there are and sends it back down. This is all, for a high school, community college, or a university.
What's for a little bit of a reference, when I was in high school, we had the Nokia phones, and the only game on it was Tetris and Snake. Right?
Yeah.
So what's happened overnight is manufacturing has gone from pretty much overnight, it seems like, from the Nokia phone to the iPhone. Like all of a sudden, when you start talking about these things that can be done, it is game changing. People that might think of manufacturing as that Nokia phone with Tetris and Snake on it.
Yeah, and there's a lot driving it. So, for one thing, sensor prices across the board have fallen through the floor, right? So GPS or accelerometers that used to cost $2,000 are now 10 of them inside your one cell phone for 50 cents,
For sure.
All the wireless communication, starting back in the 1990s, it was something that only the Defense Department had access to, but that got deregulated and sent out to the commercial field. So that exploded the opportunity. So now it's very simple to put a vibration sensor with a wireless signal, easy to install and cheap to buy.
Yeah.
And now people are like, well, what could I do with that information if I knew the vibration curve, on an instantaneous basis?
Yeah.
What does that do for my maintenance program, for example? Can we finally get towards predictive maintenance, right? So I've been in this industry for a long time. Every year, there's a new article saying predictive maintenance is about 2 years away.
Yeah.
And always will be.
Yeah.
But you finally see, okay, maybe we're at that cusp now. And that's exciting. That's trillions of dollars of potential savings across the country.
Yeah, I am on the same page with you there, and 100%. So you have a pretty broad view, and I would also say you guys get pretty deep. When you look at Industry 4.0, what are some of the I don't want to call them myths, but I want to call them PowerPoint presentations that might do it a little bit of the service right now? What are some of the stuff that you're seeing immediate ROI? Like if a company was net new into the space and they wanted to look at it, we're out here in the Pacific Northwest, a ton of aerospace supply chain companies, right? A ton of man lift supply chain companies. What are some of the things you're seeing trending of, hey, we might not be GE Digital, but we're here and we're starting to see real ROI throughout that manufacturing facility and supply chain?
Yeah, because we're looking out at the manufacturing world, because our customers, the instructors, the teachers, the professors look to us as having the pulse of the industry. And there's very few greenfield Industry 4.0 factories in the world.
For sure.
Festo has one actually in southern Germany. So
Nice.
if you're ever there, we can arrange for a tour.
Perfect.
But there's not many of those in the world yet. So, what I think the low-hanging fruit is on that maintenance side. So people are looking, okay, what can I do to save some maintenance costs, and it's relatively easy to calculate that savings and justify that project. So we're seeing a lot of small projects,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Kind of proving the concept.
Yeah.
And I think as those wins start to accumulate, people will look for other opportunities. But I think we can ride the maintenance application for a long time.
Yeah, so I'm on the same page with you, and I have a good friend of mine and a colleague out here that does IoT for one of the telcos, and he always says you can just move that value needle a little bit, just your implementation, such as mains, and your ROI is huge, right?
Yes.
It's a major output, and so I think that mains piece, has a pretty strong tail on it that pulls in parts and inventory, supply chain, that start to get derivatives that are pretty exciting out there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that's super interesting. From the technology, you've seen this, so I might be a little biased coming from a tech company. From the technology piece, talk about that's evolved. I'd say maybe over the last 4 or 5 years, the interoperability, maybe the deployment. Project lengths. I know that's a tricky one because of the scope of project, but just what goes into that now compared to, let's say, 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, so if I just concentrate on the interoperability piece, that's a really big thing. So one thing that's happened in the last 10 years that didn't happen prior to that was industrial Ethernet has become very commonplace, right? So up until about 10 years ago, you had proprietary bus systems that were running, and it really took until about 10 years ago before industrial Ethernet became prevalent in the factory, and that gave a whole basis of interoperability now, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone knows how to operate Ethernet.
Yeah.
Physically, you have to harden the systems in a different way than you do in the office environment. So that's one real big thing that was pushing convergence. Another thing, and this is getting really nitty gritty, is OPC UA. All right. So,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the ability to standardize the communication between devices so that devices from different vendors can readily understand the information. OPC UA is the closest we have to a standard on the plant floor right now. And by the way, we include that in all our training systems.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I remember looking at OPC about 10 years ago when we were looking at ability, and OPC seemed to have the head start there.
Yeah. So that's definitely that's definitely a moving force as well. So people really want to be able to use best of breed in the plant. So prior to today, the big companies would try to lock up a customer. Okay, buy our controls, you have to buy our sensors, you have to buy our, you have to buy the whole package, and end users
PLC,
really,
VFD, like everything.
Yeah, and end users generally, either they liked it if everything was working well, but say a new sensor comes out from a different company that's better, they couldn't readily use it, and that was irritating to them. So we're seeing a lot of movement towards that, and we're also seeing, in these plants, not everything is going through the PLC anymore. So that control architecture, the standard Purdue control architecture seems like it's starting to crumble away, because now you can stick with a magnet, a sensor, onto a piece of equipment with a wireless device, and there's no PLC involved. So, what does that do for security? And by the way, right? So we also developed the training.
For sure.
We also developed the training program on plant floor industrial networking security. So what do you do on the plant floor that's different from your standard type of cybersecurity system? So we have a whole program just on that, for example.
That would be beneficial for almost every. It is so different.
Yep.
Where do you see, So where do you see 5G coming into play? Is that coming 5G deployments, the private networks?
Yeah, so with all the telecom systems, when they first get released, it's hard to figure out where the hype stops and the reality starts. But from what I read, and I'm fortunate in New Jersey, the old Bell Laboratories is not too far from here, and there's still a lot of telecom work being done. So I can zip up there for some meetings and hear what they're talking about 5G for. So from what I can tell, the increased bandwidth and speed is only going to help push Industry 4.0 and the Internet of Things even faster for adoption rates. They have some obstacles to overcome with the number of antennas that are needed, but I've even heard that inside a building, 5G could replace Wi-Fi as the network. I've heard things like that as well.
Yeah, I stopped my video because I think I'm killing our bandwidth, but you're good.
Okay.
So I agree. I was in rural Idaho talking with a company, and they have access to a bunch of 5G bands on the rural network, and they work with the dairies, they work with food processing and everything. And what's really interesting with these folks is it's really expensive to run fiber, and so they haven't been able to take much of the automation into place because they couldn't run a bunch of new. They have pre-war machines out there sometimes.
Yeah,
in
right.
their factories. Yeah, and so now they're really excited about the possibility of not the full Tesla, cobot, operation, but they can identify some patches where they can put Industry 4.0 in very critical areas of their manufacturing process that could have massive ROI impacts within 12 months. So I think that's going to be exciting on when we leverage that.
Yeah, and you can do it. You can do it piecemeal. You can just pick those perfect case histories, applications, and do it there and get a success. And then once there's a success, people will be more comfortable looking for, for other opportunities. Yeah. And then one other thing that we're doing as an organization is we're really partnering with a lot of other organizations. So the National Coalition of Certification Centers, for example, that's the organization that certifies that a technical school is doing everything that it needs to do to effectively teach students any of the disciplines that you might find at a technical school. Anything from auto body to welding to plumbing, electrical technician. So we developed with them a manufacturing program that's now certified, and all the students get certificates from that. We work with several of the professional organizations like NIMS, the Metal Working Group, and others in manufacturing to start to align all these standards on the training side as well. So we're pretty excited about that. That gives real value to a school and to the students that are graduating from the program.
That's fantastic. I mean, I think that this bridge of the education, the certification to the industry is one that's needed. I've read some places in fluid power alone, there's going to be a 5 million, headcount gap on retirees versus new folks coming in. It's one of those things where I get so excited about manufacturing, about fluid power, pneumatics, because if you looked at like a garbage truck, these garbage trucks now, which has all the technology, they are like transformers. Like they are like these robots, right? And like it's so incredible on how much technology is on there to make that work and make it work seamless. Oh, and by the way, not over complicate it for the operating company. That's right. And then you can go to, I'm sure we've all walked, I've had the benefit to walk like the Tesla floor and the SpaceX floor. And we're in there on the manufacturing side doing really, really cool stuff where the rocket scientists are asking us about the pneumatic systems and the fluid power systems because they've studied rockets. They've never thought about this piece. So it's really neat to see the technology bridge those gaps because they're looking for ways for more intelligent systems throughout their machine.
Oh, definitely. And I'm glad that you mentioned Tesla because we did some very nice projects out in Nevada with Truckee Meadows Community College and Western Nevada Technical College, specifically to train Tesla technicians for the plant floor. So,
it's fantastic. It is so cool. And when you see like those Tesla cars coming off the factory floor or the engineering that goes into it, it's pretty phenomenal. And to think that like our industry is powering that company to build what they're building is pretty neat.
Yeah, it's a great time to be in manufacturing. I encourage any professors or teachers or guidance counselors that might listen to this podcast to try to get a tour for your students of a manufacturing facility. If you haven't been in one for a long time, you'll probably be pretty surprised about how sleek and modern and sophisticated it is, and it's really a great place to start a career. So.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. I think, I don't even echo, great place to start a career and great place to build a career.
Yeah, exactly.
It is so fun. Kind of to circle this out, what excites you when you look in the future? You're definitely seeing some of those PowerPoint presentations of what's coming down the pipeline in the next 5, 10, 15 years, right?
Yep.
Some of it might materialize, some may not, but it's pretty exciting. What are you seeing that's really getting you pumped up for the next decade?
Well, what gets me pumped up and what I think would get most people pumped up as a consumer is that we're going to see a lot more personalization of product across the board. So, you can think about clothing or shoe wear or, any sort of recreational type devices. These technologies don't only impact the manufacturing plant floor just by themselves, but it's allowing manufacturers to be very fast and nimble and flexible and to run much smaller lot sizes, right? So for many years, you come up with a standardized product and you run that product through the machine without any changes. But what we're reading about all the time is mass personalization. So how can Adam, how can Mike, how can we get a shirt that's tailored just for us, exactly to our particular measurements, and not pay anymore, not have to pay that custom price, that we might expect. So I think that's pretty exciting. It's already happened in a lot of different, industries, kind of on the quiet, but that's going to be coming to the consumer world and something everyone can get excited about, I think.
That's super exciting. I don't even think about that part of it, and just to think about for me, customized golf clubs or customized shoes or whatever it is. That is super fascinating.
Yeah. So we'll see that in the manufacturing sector as consumers for the last 10 years. As we all got used to Amazon and all the mail order businesses, we got customization of boxes of stuff, right? So, you can order a book, you can order a calculator, you can order, a coffee cup, and Amazon will package that in a unique box for you. And that's great, right? Because before it was really hard to go to one store and get all that stuff. So we're getting accustomed to this customization, but it's going to reach back into the manufacturing process. That's what all the PowerPoints are telling us. So it's just not going to be customization by packaging. It's going to be customization by manufacturing. And that's something that everyone can get excited about, I think.
Yeah. So I think, everyone's getting excited about, and then just selfishly in the North American manufacturing ecosystem, I would imagine we're going to lead the way on that a lot, because I can see where you're going to have a lot closer community manufacturing and stuff to allow you to do that. I'm just thinking the Pacific Northwest, how many great brands we have out here
on the
consumer side and stuff like that. And that's a pretty exciting deal, especially as small lot sizes become more and more efficient.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. So if people want to learn more about what you guys are doing, what's a good contact information for them to find you guys out there on the web?
Yeah. So our company website is festo.com, festo.com. And that brings you to our main page. And from there, you can go either into the automation to see what automation products we offer, or into the didactic side. So that's probably the easiest way to get to see our stuff. Or, if you give them my contact information, in this show notes, someone can always shoot me an email or a LinkedIn message or a Twitter message. That would be fine as well.
Perfect. Well, Mike, hey, thanks for joining us. I find this super informative. I didn't even know all these threads that are happening out there. It's exciting. Yeah. It gives me not hope in a bad way, hope in a really good way that there are companies like Festo that are attacking this from the education purpose and educating us that even live in the industry, like the whole small lot manufacturing you spoke about. So really great stuff. So thank you for all that, and thanks for being on.
Yeah. No, thank you for the invitation. It was great. Thank you, Adam. Okay.
Thanks.
Goodbye.